The sun hung low over the vast African savanna, bleeding orange across the sky, like a wound that refused to heal. Wind rustled through brittle grass, whispering secrets of survival to those who dared to listen. But that evening, something felt wrong. The vultures were circling too early. Beneath the shade of a thorny acacia, a tiny lion cub whimpered alone. His name was Zubri, meaning strong, though his small, trembling frame betrayed no such strength in that moment. His golden fur was caked with dust, his sides rising and falling with shallow breaths. He had lost his mother. A distant roar earlier had told him something was wrong. She had left the hunt. Just for a while, she had promised in her quiet, comforting purrs, but she never returned. Now, the cub sat in the shadow of thorns, the sun burning his back, hunger gnawing at his belly. But hunger was the least of his fears. From the dry grass, yellow eyes emerged, 5 of them. Their snickers sliced through the air, low and cruel. They had caught his scent. To them, he was not a lion, not a future king. Just meat, easy prey. The leader, a muscular brute named Kivu, stepped forward first. His eyes were bloodshot, his muzzle still red from an earlier kill. He moved with confidence, the kind that comes from knowing no help would come for the cub. Zubri backed into the thorn bush, wincing as sharp branches scraped the skin. But the pain did not matter. Survival was all that mattered. The hyenas closed in, forming a circle. Their shadows stretched across the cub's body like claws. One of them licked its lips. Another snarled. And Zubri knew they were toying with him. Suddenly, the earth trembled. Dust rose. Something massive was coming. The hyenas paused, ears twitching, nostrils flaring. And then from between 2 termite mounds came Tembo. He was not yet full-grown, barely old enough to lead a herd, but his sheer size towered over the grass. His ears were wide like sails, flapping with anger. His trunk curled, and his deep, gray eyes locked onto the scene before him. Zubri cornered. Tembo knew the cub. He had seen him before, playing near the riverbank with his lioness mother. Their kind rarely interacted, but Tembo remembered the mother's gentle gaze and the cub's fearless laughter. That memory stirred something ancient inside him. The hyenas turned toward the elephant, baring teeth. They barked, snarled, mocked. Tembo did not back down. His feet pounded the ground as he advanced. Boom, boom. The vibrations made the hyenas step back, but not Kivu. He lunged, biting at Tembo's leg. A mistake. With one swift motion, Tembo swung his trunk. It struck Kivu in the ribs. The hyena yelped and rolled into the dust. The others scattered. But only for a moment. They were hungry and bold. Tembo stood protectively over Zubri now, casting a massive shadow over the trembling cub. The elephant trumpeted, the sound thundering through savannah like a war cry. And in that moment, Zubri felt something he had not felt in hours. But the battle was not over. The hyenas began to regroup. More snarls echoed from the east. There were more coming. Tembo knew this was only the beginning. The hyenas weren't finished. Tembo's roar had rattled the skies. But hunger is a force more stubborn than fear. From the distant ridge, shadows spilled into view. 3 more hyenas, sleek and savage, joining the pack that already surrounded Zubri. Now they were 8. Kivu, still limping from the earlier strike, snarled a command, rallying his bloodthirsty pack. They fanned out across the plain, circling Tembo and the cub like vultures around the dying. Every snarl, every bark, was a cruel chorus echoing across the savannah. Zubri tried to rise, his legs trembling like reeds in the wind. He was small, broken, bruised, but he still had the soul of a lion. He bared his tiny teeth, growling defiant. Tembo looked down at him, this fragile cub, trying to stand tall against an impossible threat. And something ancient stirred in his heart again, not just compassion, but respect. Tembo positioned himself wider, towering like a gray fortress. He trumpeted again, but this time it was not a warning. It was a call. Somewhere far behind them, his herd had gone ahead, moving toward the waterhole. But elephants remember. They listen, and sometimes they return. But would they come in time? The first hyena struck. Tembo twisted, stomping the ground just inches from its snarling face. Dust flew up. The hyena backed off, eyes wild. Another lunge from the side. Tembo whipped his trunk, smacking it into the hard earth. Zubri flinched at the impact, ears flattening. The scene was chaos. Shadows leaping, roars clashing with growls, blood mixing with the dry scent of dirt and fear. Kivu charged again, aiming low. But Zubri, weak and dizzy, threw himself in the way. His claws scraped the ground as he launched, colliding with Kivu's snout. The hyena staggered, not from force, but from shock. A cub was defending a giant. Tembo's eyes widened. The bond had shifted. This was no longer a rescue. It was a partnership. He moved fast, faster than he ever had. His legs shot out, catching Kivu mid-recovery. The hyena flew through the air and landed with a dull thud, groaning. But now, 3 more came at once. Tembo reared up on 2 legs, a massive, terrifying sight, then slammed down with force that cracked the earth. One hyena shrieked and limped away, vanishing into grass. Another was caught by the swing of his trunk and thrown like a rag doll. But the last one, the youngest, snuck behind Tembo. Zubri saw it, but his body wouldn't move fast enough. A blur, a scream. The hyena leapt, aiming for Tembo's spine. But a sharp trumpet burst through the air, so loud, so close, it shook the ground. And then, out of the thorn trees, she appeared, the matriarch, Tembo's mother. Her tusks were massive, her presence holy. Behind her, the rest of the herd emerged, gray giants stomping to the grass like rolling thunder. The hyenas froze, and then they ran. All of them, even Kivu, dragging his injured leg, vanished into the tall grass without a backward glance. Their hunger was no match for the united power of giants. Silence fell over the plain. Zubri collapsed, his body giving in at last. Tembo caught him gently with his trunk, lifting him like he weighed nothing. The herd gathered close, forming a protective circle around them both. The matriarch stepped forward, her steps slow and deliberate. She sniffed Zubri, her old eyes studying him not as a threat, but as something else entirely, a child. And then, gracefully, shockingly, she lowered her head and pressed her trunk softly to his fur. An acceptance. That night, as stars spilled across the sky, Zubri slept nestled between the legs of the elephant herd, his tiny frame surrounded by warm bodies and low, rumbling heartbeats. Tembo stood guard. His ears twitched at every sound, but not out of fear, out of duty. He wasn't just protecting a cub. He was protecting a friend. The morning sun broke across the savannah like golden fire. Dew clung to the grass, and the world felt quiet. For a moment, Zubri stirred beneath the great gray bellies of the elephant herd, his sides rising slowly. The bruises from the hyena attack throbbed, but he was alive, safe, surrounded by beings that once would have trampled him without a thought. Above him, Tembo stood like a silent guardian. His trunk shifted now and then to gently brush flies away from Zubri's back. No one had asked him to. He just did. But not everyone in the herd was pleased. A younger bull, Mandu, flicked his ears with irritation. He had noticed Tembo's attachment to the lion cub, and to him, it was unnatural, foolish, dangerous. We are elephants, his posture seemed to say, not caretakers of lost predators. But for now, he said nothing. The matriarch had allowed it, and no one challenged her will. Far away, high in the sky, the vultures circled again. They had seen the failed hunt. They had seen the hyenas fall. But they knew the savannah never stayed calm for long. Death had only been delayed. That afternoon, Zubri awoke with a start. He had been dreaming of his mother. Her scent, her roar, the soft rumble she made when he nestled beside her. In the dream, she had been calling him. In reality, only silence greeted him. He wandered a little outside the herd, his steps uneven. Tembo followed quietly, always nearby. They stopped near a riverbank where the reeds grew tall, and then Zubri froze. There, among the rocks, bones glinted in the sun, fresh, not yet picked clean, and beside them, tufts of golden fur. Tembo felt it before Zubri did. The air shifted. The wind fell silent. And Zubri, trembling, stepped closer. It was her. What remained of her. His mother. The scent hit him like thunder. He collapsed beside her bones, a soft cry escaping his throat. A sound so small and broken, it pierced the heart of even the coldest of animals. Tembo moved slowly, his shadow falling over the cub. He didn't try to comfort him. He just stayed. Silent, present, loyal. Hours passed. By the time Zubri rose, the sun was falling again. But something inside him had changed. He no longer looked like prey. That night, the herd moved on. The matriarch led the way, but Tembo stayed at the rear, beside Zubri. The cub was quiet, but there was a flame now behind his young eyes, and danger was closer than anyone realized. Mandu had not forgotten his doubts, and in the darkness, he approached Tembo, standing tall and firm. The message was clear: leave the cub behind, or leave the herd. Tembo did not answer. He simply turned away. But the wound was deep. For the first time in his life, he felt divided. The next morning, the herd crossed a patch of open land, flat, dry, and cracked. Perfect terrain for a trap. Tembo's ears caught it first. A laugh, a low, guttural one. Hyenas. Again. But this time, it wasn't 5. Or 8. It was 15. Kivu had returned. And this time, he was not alone. The sun had not yet fully risen, but already the heat pressed down like an invisible hand. The herd moved with quiet tension, each footfall kicking up dust that floated like ghosts across the cracked savanna floor. Tembo stayed close to Zubri, his eyes scanning the horizon. Something wasn't right. The air felt too still. The birds had vanished. And the scent, oh, that bitter, coppery scent of blood and rot, hung too heavy. Then he saw them. First 1, then 5, then 15. Kivu had returned with reinforcements. The hyenas spilled out from the distant brush like oil, their eyes gleaming in the early light. They moved fast, encircling the elephants with precision that could only mean one thing: a coordinated ambush. At the center of the herd, the matriarch raised her trunk and trumpeted, a cry of warning. But the circle was already forming too tight. They were surrounded. Zubri growled low, placing himself between Tembo's legs again. But this time it wasn't fear driving him. It was instinct. The instinct to fight, to stand, to protect. Mandu pushed forward, eyes blazing. This is the price, his stance screamed. This is what happens when we protect predators. But as he charged forward to confront Tembo, he didn't see the flank attack coming. 2 hyenas leapt to the side. The bull twisted too late. Their teeth sank in. Tembo didn't hesitate. He lunged, smashing one hyena with the sheer force of his shoulder and flinging it against a rock. The other tried to run, but Tembo's trunk curled around its back leg, dragging it like a sack of bones before slamming it into the dirt. Mandu fell to the ground, bleeding, and in that moment he realized Tembo was not a fool. He was a leader. Kivu approached slowly, unafraid. His pack followed, snapping their jaws, circling the outer elephants. But his eyes were fixed only on the cub, Zubri. He wanted revenge. But as he prepared to lunge, Zubri stepped forward. Alone, Tembo trumpeted in protest. But Zubri didn't stop. His tiny paws crunched the dry grass. His breath was heavy. But even Kivu growled. The cub growled back. And then, before anyone could stop him, Zubri leapt. Not backward, forward, straight into Kivu. Claws raked the hyena's face. Kivu howled, stunned not by pain, but by the audacity. A cub? Attacking him? He lunged back in fury, jaws wide, but Tembo was already moving. A flash of gray, a wall of muscle. Tembo slammed into Kivu, lifting him into the air like a leaf caught in a storm. And then, with the strength of generation behind him, he hurled a hyena across the plains. Kivu hit the ground hard. He didn't get back up. The rest of the hyenas panicked. Some tried to fight. Others tried to flee. But the elephant herd, now fully united, had had enough. They charged. Trunks whipped. Tusks tore. Dust rose in thick, choking clouds. And within minutes, The ground was littered with retreating paw prints, wounded scavengers, and a stillness that no longer felt threatening. Only one thing remained in the center of that battlefield. A lion cub and his elephant guardian, breathing, alive, victorious. Later that night, beneath the stars, Mandu limped forward. Humbled, he approached Zubri, not with a glare this time, but with a bow of his head. No words were exchanged. None were needed. Zubri had earned his place, not as a lion, not as an outsider, but as one of them. The matriarch led the herd once more, but this time Tembo walked beside her, and Zubri, he walked proudly under the constellation of the lion, Leo they call it, as if the stars themselves had rewritten the sky just for him. In a world divided by instinct, sometimes the purest form of courage is simply choosing to protect what others fear. Share this story if it moved you. Let the world remember. Even the smallest heart can shake the wildest ground.